Namaskar, dear learners. I would like to welcome you all to the fourth video of our module 9 of the course on international economics. So, we have already recorded 3 videos related to this module. The first video is on objectives of WTO and objectives of import quotas. The second lecture which I delivered, this is basically related to types and effects of import quotas. And the third lecture is basically what is dumping and what is the role of WTO in controlling dumping. Now, in this lecture, this is a continuation of the previous 3 lectures. In these lectures, basically, we try to explain what is multilateralism and the role of WTO in it. So let me start with the definition of multilateralism. In general parlance or in general language, what we can define as a multilateralism. Multilateralism is a principle of organizing relation between states in a way that promotes collective actions and cooperation across multiple nations. So obviously it stands in contrast to bilateralism, that is interaction between two countries, and unilateralism, that is action taken by one country independently. It is, to term it as a multilateralism, it should be more than true. So in the context of international trade, how we can define multilateralism? Multilateralism in the context of international trade is viewed as a means of ensuring that trade policies, regulation and disputes are addressed through collective decision-making framework, which ultimately lead to fairness, stability, predictability in global economics. So that is why in case of international trade, the concept of multilateralism is quite broad, which must ensure that the whatever trade policies we adopt, whatever regulation, whatever disputes must be addressed through some kind of collective decision-making framework, which ultimately foster fairness. Now, the World Trade Organization serves as a primary institutional embodiment of multilateralism in international trade. So, as I have already explained in the first three lectures of this module, the World Trade Organization, it is basically established in 1995. So, and it replaced the General Agreement on Tariff and Trade, which is famously known as GATT. It replaced GATT as a main international body responsible for regulating global trade. Now, as I have already explained, what are the key objectives of World Trade Organization? The World Trade Organization key objectives are to promote trade liberalization, ensure non-discriminatory trading system. Another important role is to provide a forum for trade negotiation and settle trade disputes. So its multilateral framework of the World Trade Organization allows nations of all economic sizes and stages of development to participate and to influence trade rules that govern their interaction. Now, in this lecture, basically what we try to explain and explore the concept of multilateralism, the role of World Trade Organization in promoting multilateral trade practices, its successes, challenges, and the evolving dynamics of global trade in the 21st century. Now, to explain the role of what is multilateralism and what is the role of WTO in promoting multilateralism, we must know the relationship between multilateralism and WTO, because the relationship between multilateralism and WTO is fundamental to understanding the direction of international trade, especially as it faces growing challenges from rising protectionism and regional trade agreements. Now, let me explain, the concept of multilateralism in global trade. So, as I already explained, multilateralism refers to the process by which several countries, not one or two countries, several countries acting together work to address common concern or challenges through international cooperation. So, obviously, if you explain this definition, then obviously multilateralism stands as an antidote to the fragmentation of international relations, offering a platform to countries to harmonize policies, avoid trade wars, and manage global issues that transcend national borders, such as climate change, recent pandemics, and in the case of WTO, trade regulations. Now, how multilateralism operate in the context of global trade? In the context of global trade, multilateralism operates through establishment of global agreement, norms, and rules that are accepted and adhered to by the majority of the world's nations. So, whenever there are some kind of rules, norms, and as prescribed by world organization, then what it should be accepted to, it should be accepted to majority of the world nations. So that is why for operation of multilateralism, it is necessary to establishment of some kind of global agreement and norms and rules, and which should be accepted by majority of the world's nations. So that is why the multilateral trading system seeks to eliminate discriminatory practices. It cannot discriminate between two countries or among the countries. Discriminatory practices and trade barriers that favor certain countries over others. So that will lead to, or that will promote fair competition and reduce the potential for trade conflict. So what happened? By participating in multilateral trade negotiation and agreement, all the countries who engage in international trade, those countries are expected to enhance economic cooperation, share the benefits of growth, and tackle common challenges through collective action. Now, there are some key features of multilateralism in global trade. Now, what are those features? Those features are basically non-discrimination, transparency, reciprocity, inclusivity, dispute resolution. So let me explain one by one. Now, what is non-discrimination? So as the name suggests itself, the principle of most favored nation treatment is central to multilateral trade. There should not be any kind of discrimination between the countries or among the countries who engage in international trade. So according to these features, or that is a non-discrimination, it requires that any trade advantage offered to one country must be extended to all the other countries of the multilateral system. So this ensures that no country is left out or unfairly disadvantaged. So that is the principle or features of multilateralism, that is non-discrimination. The second most important features of multilateralism is a transparency. So there's whatever procedure, whatever rules, those should be transparent to all the countries involved in international trade. So that is why multilateral trade agreement promote transparency in the formulation of trade rules and policies, requiring countries to disclose. They have to disclose trade regulation, tariff, and other measures that could affect international trade. Now, another important features of multilateralism in global trade is reciprocity. So, what reciprocity is all about? It can be defined as, countries engage in trade negotiation with the understanding that mutual concession will be made to facilitate better access to markets, reduce tariff, and more favorable trade terms. So it should be reciprocal to all the countries. Another important features of multilateralism in global trade is inclusivity. What it basically implies? So multilateralism involves the participation of a large number of countries regardless of their economic size. So thereby it ensures that whether the country is a small, developing, whatever their economic status, whatever their economic size, they should have a voice in shaping global trade policy. So that is why this features of inclusivity basically explain that fact. The last but not least, the features of multilateralism in global trade is the dispute resolution. A multilateral system ensures the establishment of mechanism to resolve dispute among member states, preventing conflict from escalating into trade wars and providing recourse for countries aggravated by the unfair practices. So that means if there is some kind of unfair practices adopted by some countries, so there should be some kind of mechanism to resolve those kind of dispute, so that one country should not be victimized due to unfair practices by another country. Now, the role of WTO in promoting multilateralism. We need to know why World Trade Organization is considered to be crucial in promoting multilateralism. What happened? Basically, World Trade Organization is considered to be one of the important organizations which can facilitate multilateralism in an efficient way. Because the World Trade Organization is a cornerstone institution of the multilateral trading system. As I have already explained, it was established in 1995 to ensure a stable, predictable, and rule-based international trade agreement. So as a result, the World Trade Organization creation in 1995 marked the culmination of decades of trade negotiations under the GATT agreement, which had been in existence since 1947. So while the GATT, that is the General Agreement on Tariff and Trade, focused primarily on reducing tariff, the World Trade Organization expanded its scope to include new areas such as intellectual property services and trade-related investment measures. So what we understand, that means the World Trade Organization has to play a significant role in promoting multilateralism, so that all the countries who engage in international trade, they can gain from the process of engaging in international trade. Now, what are the functions of World Trade Organization that ultimately lead to promotion of multilateralism in global trade? The first important function is the trade negotiation. The World Trade Organization serves as a platform for negotiations among the member countries to address trade barriers, reduce tariff, and develop new trade rules. So that is why this organization, that is World Trade Organization, it basically facilitates the Doha Development Round, which I will explain later, and other negotiation aimed at expanding and improving international trade agreement. So that is why this particular function, that is trade negotiation, through trade negotiation, what World Trade Organization can do, World Trade Organization, through efficiently negotiating trade within countries, it can promote multilateralism. Next, monitoring and transparency. So what usually happens, the World Trade Organization or WTO, monitors trade policies to ensure compliance with its rules. It is the responsibility of the World Trade Organization to ensure whether the member countries or the countries who involve in international trade, they comply with the rules framed for smooth functioning of the international trade. So that is why it requires the members to notify the organization of new trade members for ensuring transparency in trade policies. Another important function of World Trade Organization is to dispute settlement. Generally what happens, the World Trade Organization provides a forum for resolving trade dispute through dispute settlement system. So what happens? Through this system, that is the dispute settlement system, is designed to be impartial, and theoretically it is designed to impartial and legally binding, providing a structured process for resolving conflict related to violation of trade agreements. Another important function of World Trade Organization, which ultimately promote multilateralism in global trade, is the technical assistance and capacity building. So World Trade Organization, what they do, they try to help developing countries, both developing and developed countries, but they try to help more to developing countries to improve their trade capacity by providing technical assistance, training programs, and guidance on implementing trade agreement and policies. So by providing those kind of technical assistance and building up capacity, the World Trade Organization tries to increase the magnitude of international trade so that the developing countries can benefit from engaging in international trade. Another important functions of World Trade Organization that ultimately lead to growth of multilateralism is the trade policy review mechanism. So this mechanism of World Trade Organization ensures that the member countries adhere to, or they maintain their commitment and also maintain transparent trade policies. It helps the World Trade Organization to monitor the impact of member policies on the international trading system. Now, these are basically, which we have already discussed, these are basically the functions of World Trade Organization in facilitating multilateralism, that is trade negotiation, monitoring and transparency, dispute settlement, technical assistance and capacity building, trade policy and review mechanism. Now you need to assess how successful World Trade Organization in promoting multilateral trade. Now in this portion we will try to discuss the success of World Trade Organization in promoting multilateral trade. The World Trade Organization has played a significant role in shaping and performing multilateral rule and has achieved notable successes in advancing global trade liberalization as well as creating a more predictable environment for international trade. So some of the major success of the World Trade Organization we can include or we can discuss. One of them is trade liberalization. That means restriction or reduction of trade barriers. So since its establishment in 1995, the World Trade Organization has overseen or it grow a gradual reduction in tariff and other trade barriers across a wide range of sectors. So as a result, this liberalization has significantly increased global trade flows and integrated economies, benefiting both developed and developing countries. Because if there is a reduction in tariff barriers among the countries, then obviously the volume of both import and export for a particular country will ultimately increase. Then both the countries, or countries which involve in international trade, there will be some kind of mutual benefit among all the countries. And World Trade Organization plays a pivotal role in liberalizing trade by reducing tariff and other non-tariff barriers. Another important success of World Trade Organization is the expansion of trade agreement. The World Trade Organization has expanded the scope of international trade agreement beyond just goods to include services, intellectual property, trade-related investment measures. That means what they did in their basket, they have increased whenever we're talking about international trade, they try to increase the magnitude of international trade by including both services, intellectual property, trade-related investment measures. So that is why the agreement on trade-related aspect of intellectual property rights and the general agreement on trade in services are example of those expansion. So which ultimately lead to increase in international trade. Another important success of World Trade Organization is that to some extent they are able to act as a mechanism for dispute settlement. So that is why dispute settlement mechanism is considered to be one of the important success of World Trade Organization. The World Trade Organization dispute settlement system has been an essential tool for resolving trade conflict in a peaceful and rule-based manner. It has ensured that countries can hold each other accountable for violating trade agreements, reducing the risk of unilateral action that could harm global trade relations. So that is why World Trade Organization is considered to be one of the important mechanisms for dispute in related to international trade. Another important fact which can be considered as the success of World Trade Organization in expanding world trade or in expanding multilateralism is the inclusive membership. The World Trade Organization inclusive membership, which has grown to which has grown to 164 members, ensures that small and developing countries have a say in shaping global trade policies. So this inclusivity has given rise to initiatives such as Aid for Trade Program, which helps developing countries to build their trade capacity. So that is why by accumulating more and more members, World Trade Organization plays a pivotal role or significant role in expanding the world trade so that all the countries involved or engaged in international trade, they can get some kind of benefit from that, from international trade or international economies. Now, another important issue which can be explained as a success of World Trade Organization in promoting international trade or promoting multilateralism is the transparency and rule of law. The World Trade Organization has helped to increase the transparency of trade policies and fostered a rule-based international trading system. So that is why the trade policy review mechanism ensures that countries are held accountable for their trade practices, while the requirement for countries to notify the World Trade Organization of changes in trade regulation enhances policy transparency. So that is why the transparency and rule of law is considered to be one of the important success of World Trade Organization in promoting international trade. Now, while doing all those functions, World Trade Organization used to face some kind of challenges. Now, what are the challenges that facing the WTO facilitating multilateralism? So, despite the successes, what happened? The World Trade Organization uh, and the broader multilateralism trade system face several significant challenges in the contemporary global trade environment. So these challenges, stem from both internal weaknesses within World Trade Organization and external pressure related to changing geopolitical dynamics. So one such challenges is rising protectionism. So one of the most significant challenges to multilateralism is the rise of protectionist policies and nationalist trade rules. So in recent years, what happened? Many countries, including major economies like United States, have increasingly turned to unilateral measures such as tariff, trade restriction, and subsidies. So ultimately, what happened? Due to this kind of protectionist measures, even by the very large economies such as USA, so this trend undermines the principle of free trade and multilateral cooperation. So ultimately, the placing or asking the World Trade Organization ability to enforce trade rules under pressure. The another challenge, stalemate in Doha development round. The Doha development round, which was launched in 2001, aimed to address the concern of developing countries by promoting trade liberalization, reducing agricultural subsidies, and improving access to global market. This is basically the initiative of World Trade Organization. But what happened after, however, after more than 2 decades of negotiation, the Doha round has largely stalled, basically due to disagreement between developed and developing nations over the pace and nature of trade liberalization. So this impasse has led some question regarding World Trade Organization ability to facilitate meaningful trade negotiation. So that is why it is considered as one of the challenges of World Trade Organization. Another important challenge of World Trade Organization in promoting the principles of multilateralism is the dispute settlement mechanism crisis. The World Trade Organization dispute settlement system has faced many challenges, particularly concerning the issues related to both the developing and underdeveloped countries. For example, the United States has blocked the appointment of new judges, leading to the crisis in the dispute settlement system. So this has undermined the World Trade Organization ability to effectively resolve trade disputes, further weakening the institution credibility. Fragmentation of global trade. This is another important challenge of World Trade Organization. So in recent years, what happened? The rise of regional and bilateral trade agreement has further fragmented the global trade system. While this agreement has promoted trade liberalization within specific regions, they can also create trade diversion, discrimination, and inconsistency with multilateral trade. So ultimately, what happened? This proliferation of this agreement has made it more difficult for World Trade Organization to manage global trade effectively. Emerging issues and new trade challenges is considered to be another important challenge of World Trade Organization in promoting international trade through multilateralism. The World Trade Organization has also struggled to address new and emerging issues in global trade such as digital trade, e-commerce, and the regulation of cross-border trade flows. So these areas which are crucial in the 21st century required updated rules that reflect technological advancement. But World Trade Organization has made little progress in these areas. So ultimately, in conclusion, what we can say, the World Trade Organization represents the institutional embodiment of multilateralism in global trade. It plays a central role in promoting trade liberalization, fostering economic cooperation, resolving disputes, and ensuring transparency in international trade relations. However, it faces numerous challenges in adopting to the challenges or in terms of changing dynamics of the global economy. Why? Because the rise of protectionism, the stagnation of trade negotiation, the crisis in dispute settlement system, and the fragmentation of global trade pose significant obstacles to World Trade Organization's ability to maintain the effectiveness and relevance of the multilateral trading system. So, as the global trade landscape continues to evolve, the future of multilateralism and the World Trade Organization will depend on the ability of the member countries to work together to reform and to strengthen the institution. So, this will involve addressing the pressing issues of modern trade, such as digital trade, climate change, global health, while safeguarding the principle of fairness, inclusivity, and reciprocity that are essential to the multilateral system. So, thus, the success of World Trade Organization in overcoming these challenges will ultimately determine whether multilateralism remains a viable model for global trade in the 21st century. Thank you.